one of the things I said at the beginning of this podcast, not this episode, but the podcast, is like, it's like every movie ever made all going on at one time. Yeah. It really is that. It's just, it's so deep, and I you can talk to people who are into the Abrahamic religions, and they will talk to you about how, like a lot of this stuff, the Emerald Tablets, all this stuff is like all like a trick by Satan to confuse us and to distance us from God. I don't necessarily believe that. I believe that all of this is real. And, my personal, I'm not going to get into my personal beliefs, but I think it's all real. I think it's like history is way older than we think it is. That's my opinion.
Yeah, well, and you also get, especially in the Christian community that I grew up in, people assuming that because it wasn't covered in the Bible that it didn't happen, like, oh, that can't be true. It's not in the Bible, you know what I mean? But there other stuff these are just these are the highlights, you know what I mean? History's been going on for a while.
Yeah, that is such a great point, Johnny. Like, not everything of all time can fit. How big would that book be?
Yeah,
it'd be like a book the size of the Empire State Building. Right. It would be so tall.
I mean, think about it. They gave like a few lines to the creation of the universe, you know what I mean? They're skipping some stuff.
Again, I think you're totally onto something. Like, those were like the important stories that need to be told. Not every moment was, and this comes from a guy who loves the Bible.
Same. Yeah.
I find it so interesting, dude. And it's just like everyone is so set on what they think is the truth. And I've learned you just got to keep your head on a swivel. You got to be open-minded to it, right? That's my opinion.
Well, the Bible even says that. Test it and try it.
The thing about religion, the idea of God and stuff, is something that a lot of people don't really understand. So first thing first, the word religion. The word religion comes from the Latin word religare, which means to hold, to bind, or to thwart forward progress of.
What?
So what religion has done is it has thwarted, held, and bound the minds and consciousness of its followers to not be able to understand that they are greater than they think they are, and the power of the universe is inside of them. The next thing we need to understand is that the concept of God is very much misunderstood. So I get a lot of pushback when they say the things I'm about to say, but the things that I say will basically upset some very, very ultra religious people. And first thing first is that, to preface the point I'm going to make, is that let's create two equal scales of measurement here. So can we agree that an apple tree cannot bear oranges, right? I think that's obvious. Everyone will say that.
I agree.
Then, okay, the next scale of measurement, can we agree that a good person would be more likely to a person to speak positive things, do good actions, has kindness, and has positive and good thoughts? Would we say that that is a general synopsis of a good person?
Yes.
Okay, so that means a bad person would be a person that does very evil acts, things like rape, murder, pillage, genocide, has very negative words and very bad and negative thoughts. Could we agree that that is probably a synopsis of a bad person?
I will agree.
Okay, good.
I will concur.
Okay, let's bring those equal scales of measurement to God. So if we have a God that tells his people to rape, murder, and pillage, cast them out of their lands, have sex slaves, and to kill the infidels or kill others that don't believe in the things that he says is and wants his followers to do, would we say that that's a good God or a bad God?
Johnny, I'm going to leave that to your answer.
Well, it would depend on the standard of the time. I think that's important to take into consideration. But I believe on judging people by their work, so I don't know why I wouldn't apply that to a deity as well. But I will say, I've heard it argued convincingly that it was, laws back then were brutal. The enforcement of them had to be brutal also because people were savage. And I can see a different God for a different time. That I can imagine that. So that's a complicated question, though.
It is a complicated question.
But the thing is, hold on. We just set up an equal set of scales, and they were very black and white. So if a God, so let me flip it the other side. So if a God tells his people to do acts of kindness, forgive those who've trespassed against him, give to the poor, and do good things, is that considered a good God or a bad God?
Johnny?
Well, that's the new covenant. Yeah. I mean, that's...
Okay, good. So we can agree that a good God would tell his followers to do good works, do good, speak good things, have good thoughts, have repentance and stuff like that. So that, because obviously those are good actions. So a bad God would tell his followers to do the opposite, right? Can we agree that that is how we set up the skills?
No,
right?
I understand what you're saying. And I just, this is so above my pay grade, like in terms of mentally. I'm just going to tell you because I want to tread on, I'm going to get beat in I'm going to take
I know, but this is the thing. We have to have these conversations.
But I just want here, this is
to break the dogma.
No, I understand what you're saying. I listen, this is where we have these conversations. People give me so much shit that I don't allow certain conversations to happen. I allow pretty much all the conversations to happen. Okay? That's what I do. I just have to say, if you create something, right? And we create this paradise, right? And in this paradise, you not even in this paradise, you create this realm. And in this realm, you have banished entities down here. And then at the same time, you've created a place for this even greater design to live and thrive. And these entities that you've banished out of heaven to this realm start to influence this great creation of yourself. Is there a call for the pushing back and to do God's will? That's the only thing I could think of. Again, I'm new to this thing. I'm trying to grow, but it's like if you create God's perfect creation and then you have a bunch of rebellious entities down there, is there a war that's going to happen? I'm just asking questions right now. I have no, I like, you bring up great points and it's like hard to go, if we're using human logic, and that seems to be the debate, right? I mean, that seems to be the debate.
But this is the thing, and the reason why I try to set up equal scales of measurement is that we can be very black and white when it comes to an apple tree not being able to bear oranges, a good person between a bad person. But when it comes to God, we disregard the equal skills of management or the thought process that we have to set up the understanding of what would be classified as quotation marks good or bad. So this is why I said, well, look, if we have a good God would tell his people to do good works, forgive, give to the poor, do acts of kindness and stuff like that. And Johnny pretty much nodded in acceptance, like, yeah, that would be a good God. So then why is it then that when a God now that is quotation marks bad tells his people to do these things, rape, murder, pillage, genocide, how can we accept that is a good God, right? And in fact, I'm going to go even deeper on this statement. Show me in the Bible where Satan has done acts of murder, rape, pillage, and violence in the Bible. The reason why many people can't answer that question is that all the acts of murder, rape, and pillage were done by God. God killed up to 3 million people in the Bible. So if the act of killing is bad, how can that be the creator of the universe and be a good God? It simply can't. So in fact, the statement I'm going to make today is that the God of the Old Testament is Satan, right? And the statement I'm going to make is that the gods, plural, in all of the Abrahamic faiths are Satan. But I'm going to caveat that word and say I'm going to explain what Satan is.
Big game hunting today.
That's a loaded statement, but I'm going to come and give you some context on why I made that statement. First thing first, let me tell people the people that Satan killed. And that was in the story of Job, where Satan asked God to test Job, and God said yes. And it was about 12 people from memory that Job killed. All of his servants, his family, his wife, his daughters, etc. And it was only Job that was left. That is the only place where Satan actually kills humans. All the other stories that come, and that far, I will do even better than that. I will give the receipts, a couple of places on where you can find some of these acts of lovingness from God. So you have murder, rape, and pillage at Jabesh, and which is in Judges 21, verse 10 to 24. Rape, murder, and pillage of the Midianites in Numbers 31, 7 to 18. Rape in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1 to 14. Sex slavery in Exodus 21, 7, verse 11. So those are some of the receipts on where you can find some of the loving acts of God. Now, let me explain the whole Satan, and I'm going to toss in the word Lucifer into that now to explain better why you can make statements like that. First thing first, the word Satan means adversary. Satan isn't just some character that sits on some throne in the underground, burning in flames, has a pitchfork, a tail, and is red. That whole concept of hell came from the word Hades, which means the underworld, which was in both the Greek and the Egyptian belief system. And it was really supposed to be the passing of the soul, where the soul leaves the body and the soul goes and be judged. This is why you have in Egyptian mythology that the heart of the person, the soul, is judged on a scale which, if the heart is lighter than a feather, it passed the test of time, and it would ascend to
we're all
level,
screwed,
which would be going into heaven, right?
Yeah.
Now that is where that whole concept of Hades, because the Greek word is Hades, and that's where the whole concept of hell comes from. And also, the Catholic Church are the ones that injected this idea of hell into the religion. And remember what I said about religion, it comes from the Latin word religare, which means to hold, to bind, or to thwart forward progress of. That idea and concept of hell and you burning forever was injected by the Catholic Church to scare people and to use fear in order to get them on side. And as we saw in 4 years ago, the tactic of fear was used to lock down the entire planet. And one of the ways and systems that are used to control man is through fear. So getting back to the Satan point, Satan just means adversary. And when you look in these ancient texts, these Anunna gods were all Satans at one particular time. Enlil, Enki, Ninurta, Isis, Shamash, all of them were a Satan, which means they were an adversary of humanity at the time. So Satan isn't just one character. And when you look in these texts, you see that all of these Anunna gods with small g, right, were actually did bad stuff against humanity. Yahweh, who is really Enlil, he just used to get tired of humans and go and say, look, kill them. I'm tired. They're making too much noise. And he would go and just slaughter some of them. He created famines that were so bad back in times of antiquity that humans actually had to eat their own children to survive.
Now, is there any chance that this is done in order to right wrongs?
No, it was just a way to, you don't do what I'm saying, I'm going to kill you. Oh. Simple. You know what I mean? Even King David, right? And David was supposed to go and do certain works from quotation marks, God, Enlil, Yahweh, Jehovah, and you didn't want to do them. He just killed 70,000 of his soldiers because they use fear and they use these very strong tactics to keep humans in line. So this is why we would just submit. So getting back to the word Lucifer now, the word Lucifer was transliterated from the Greek word phosphorus because this information was written in ancient Greek. And phosphorus actually is Venus. And Venus at the time was a sun because through the Sumerian tablets it said that Venus did a flyby. So Venus was the morning star. So the word Lucifer phosphorus in Greek, means the star of the morning or the morning star. And that was a sun at a time because we had celestial movements. And for some reason, Venus, which still today is the brightest star at night, was closer to Earth, and it was a sun because we had more than one sun. This is one of the things. So this is why there is a very much a misunderstanding between the word Satan and Lucifer. And what's happened is that those two words have merged to have this devil character, when in reality, the devil isn't what we think it is. We are the devil, and we are also a god, right? Because it's inside of us that has the two positive and negative energy. And the devil, which would be equivalent to more like the ego, is what causes us to have jealousy, envy, lust, hate, causes us to self-sabotage, causes us to eat foods that we don't want to, that don't serve our body any good, causes us to inject ourselves with poison and euthanize ourselves, causes us to worship government, and government becomes government god. It all comes from the ego, which is the negative energy inside of us, because we're both spiritual and we're both physical at the same time. And we have lost the ability to understand that we have to find a balance between these two, because it's not that the ego is all bad. Because, for example, do we have the sympathetic nervous system, which is ruled by the subconscious mind, and then you have the subconscious mind, which is one that you use for driving, cooking, and talking, and that kind of stuff. And things like breathing and like sleeping are things that we just do naturally. If you get a cut, you don't tell your body, hey, cut, you need to heal, and you need to send amount of blood there in order to create antibodies. No, it just does it. And what it is that we have lost the understanding that we are actually all God. I am God, Johnny's God, you are God, Sam, the trees are God, the plants are God, the animals are God, everything is God, right? And the reason why I set up this topic the way it did is that people to understand that it is much bigger than what we think it is. And we've been tricked, manipulated, and hoodwinked into thinking that we're some small, insignificant something that has no power. When you look at the scripture, it says that let us make man in our own image, which means that we have to look like God. And then also, if we look like God, that means we actually have to be God, because we are all fractals of God, having an individualized experience, so we become co-creators of God. When you read the Nag Hammadi text, it talks about how God was everything and nothing at the same time. So when he created the universe, because the universe could create him, because a tree doesn't actually make noise in the forest unless someone is there to visibly observe that it is making noise. So this is where the chicken and the egg principle comes from, and the observer and the observed comes from, right? This is quantum entanglement that we're talking about. So we have we are a fractal of God containing the whole. So for people to understand this concept, is like if you go to the beach and you take a cup and you take some water and put into that cup, the water in the cup is really the ocean. It has the same saline solution and content, has the same properties as the water in the ocean. And by the way, it is wet because it is water. The body is our body is like the cup. The cup holds the spirit, and the spirit inside of us is everything. It has all of the attributes of God, but we are not God as in a monolithic entity, but all of us are God, and we merge together to be God. This is why God knows everything, because he knows everything through us. We are like derivatives and like antennae of God out there just gathering information. So source knows everything because it's through us that he gets all she, because it's both male and female, gets all the information from the universe through all of us. Even the ants, the animals, they're God. This is why, like, even when Christ said, I did not come to judge. I've reserved judgment for the Son. And who was the Son of Man? All of us. All of us are God. And this is why it's very hard for religious people to understand that they're not some small, insignificant thing that, we just go to school, get a nice secure job, work for 40 years of our life, work for 40 hours a week, and retire on 40% of our salary. We're more than that. We have the spark of divinity inside of us, which is called the Christ, or some people call it the I am, the Kundalini. We're all of that. But what it is now is that we have lost our way to understand that we are that. Think about it. Have you ever heard of something called the placebo effect?
Yes.
Okay. So on normal circumstances, when drugs are brought to market, they test all the drugs. And the research shows that between 30 to 33% of all patients have the placebo effect, which means that they cured themselves. Their mind cured them of that thing, right? So this is why I'm going to argue that Christ never healed anyone. He said he actually was just the image of perfection. So people believed that if they were to touch him or to be in his presence, that they would be healed. This is why he said it is through your belief you are healed. Go forward and sin no more through your belief, right? Etc., etc., etc. Notice what he said, through your belief. So people may come and say, oh, Todd, but you just, we have no power, we can't do this. But how do you explain the placebo effect, right? They're just some humans that are more in tune to it. This is why having positive affirmations can help in manifesting certain things. This is why having positive thoughts can actually create things in reality. Because in fact, all the stuff that we have here that's permitting this call to take place is a confirmation of thoughts. So someone had a thought of a microphone in order to amplify your voice. Someone had a thought of headphones that allow me to connect into my computer. Someone had the thought of having computers and an internet connection to be able to do stuff and transact wirelessly. All of these are confirmations of thoughts. Now, if you want to get really into the weeds here, if you have any
deeper
experiences.
Okay. And now you have some questions. I have some questions. Go deeper, then I got questions.
Yeah. So if anyone has ever had any psychedelic experiences, they would understand the power of thoughts. So I literally had a weekend retreat with the ayahuasca medicine last weekend. And I was shown very, very clearly I saw how thoughts were created. I saw how they manifested, and how thoughts are both in the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. And I will never forget, there was this one moment where I saw an apple and I wanted to eat the apple. And this was all in my mind. I saw how I felt hungry, and I saw the thought creating the action of me going and picking at the apple. I saw the thought creating the feeling of satiation and feeling replenished from having the apple. And then I realized how all those three things in the past, the present, and the future were all connected through thought. The things that we just can't simply explain that are on a higher level of understanding. But those things now are what are called from the spiritual and the etheric realm, which is why I always tell people that if you want to understand a little bit more of the world and the universe, try psychedelics, try some ayahuasca, and you'll start to be able to see some of the things that just we can't explain because it's just how they are. And we are greater than we think we are, and the power of the universe is inside of us.
Okay. A lot of stuff you're saying has resonated with me in the past. I have some questions. Is there sin?
That's a good question.
That's why I asked it.
So the thing is, sin actually comes from the word Nanasin, who was a moon god, and he was one of the Anunnaki gods of antiquity. And the thing of sin is that was basically the way it looks like it was created to trick humans into having this guilt and fear-based creation of the matrix to make us feel, because sin, the way it's explained and what it is not positive, it's negative. And this is one of the tactics that was used to inject this fear and guilt belief system into us, because it lowers our frequency, energy, and vibration, and therefore lowers our consciousness. So I would say that sin does not really exist, but at the same time it exists because we believe it exists. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let me ask you something. So I've had this belief for a long time that life is about simple versus easy. Okay. And easy is pornography, drugs, alcohol, fast food. For a joke for Americans, 90 Day Fiance, whatever is like spiritual rot, right? And then the other side of it is simple, which is working out, prayers, getting closer to God, all that stuff. So there are people out there that don't believe in sin, right? They don't believe in it. We see them all the time. They're very much anti-God, anti-that. They don't believe in sin. Yet, and I'm just asking questions here. The point of the show is allow the guest to get their point of opinion across. I just have questions. So they don't believe in sin. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in anything. They're heathens, whatever it is, right? But yet they do these things that like seem to get them farther and farther from God. Like I would say, does the average OnlyFans model believe in sin? Probably not. Right? Probably not. But yet we see that their lives just go to shit. High vibrational, low vibrational, right? Like, are you doing high vibrational stuff or are you doing low vibrational stuff? So my question to you is like how does that work into how you see the world? If they don't believe in sin, yet they commit these actions and their lives seem to go off the rails. I mean, if we study adult film stars, according to some studies, and I don't know how they get these numbers, but there is an understanding that the average adult film star lives to 38 years old. And, there's YouTube channels where they go like, oh, adult film stars we lost in the last 5 years. Somebody dedicates their life to doing this. And they list all of the ways that these adult film stars have died. And it's always, literally, I'd say 95%. Drug overdose, murder, suicide. So my question to you is, how does that, and you can dismiss what I'm saying, I'm fine with it. But how does that fit into what you're saying? If they don't believe in sin, and they do as they want, yet their life seems to go completely out of control. And I tell you this as a guy who had a bad drug problem and dealt with crippling sex addiction. I still fight all that. I don't do drugs. I mean, my war against pornography is very well documented, right?
Check out Broken Simulation for that.
Okay. How does that fit into the way you see it?
Okay, so let me clarify first, and then I'll answer your question. I personally don't believe in sin, but the reason why I say that is that I think sin is the wrong word. What I do believe is positive acts and positive energy versus negative acts and negative energy, right? So the problem that we have is that the word sin has the connotations that it is like anti-God, right? And that's the reason why I don't believe in it, because we have this thing called original sin that makes us, again, as I was trying to explain, it gives us this guilt and fear-based consciousness, this guilt and shame consciousness that we're very small, insignificant things, and this guy died on a cross for us to save our sins and stuff, right? Now, in terms of what you were talking about, in terms of the quotation mark sinning and the acts of pornography and OnlyFans and stuff, I do believe that there are things that are good actions and positive actions. So an OnlyFans model, let's keep it 100, that's not really a positive act. In fact, that act is not only negative to her, but negative to society, because that act causes guys to become simps. It causes guys to go and give away all their money.
Unbelievable, right?
It causes guys to ruin their lives because all they're doing is masturbating all day, every day, and it lowers their testosterone. So to make that even worse, they don't even have the self-confidence, the belief or the skill to go and talk to a girl in the real world to try to get sex so that the things that he's doing to himself, she can do to him, because she actually finds him attractive and she likes him. So I do believe in acts that are both positive and negative. And in that case, things like rape, murder, pillage are all negative acts. So the actual sin as we would conceptualize it, I don't believe in, because I believe that we are perfect beings, but we've just forgotten how perfect we are. And what has happened is that all of these words, and because like I said, the word sin comes from Nanasin, who was the chief moon god of right? He is actually the god that the Muslims worship, because his symbol was the crescent moon. And we know that the cult that was in came down into Arabia, and he was called Jabal Hubal. The name that was given to that moon god in Arabia was Hubal, and that was the god of And on every masjid and mosque, you have a crescent moon. Signs and symbols are what rule the world, and what people think and what really is are two different things. So I say all that to say that I don't believe in sin the way it is, because what it does is that it doesn't give us any power, right? And what it does, it injects a consciousness of guilt and shame that we are so insignificant that we can't do anything. And all these religions are basically have the same ideology, that we are all we are sinners, right? So we're not worthy of God, but we have a Messiah. The Jews have said that a Messiah is to come. The Christians believe that a Messiah has come and will come again. And the Muslims have one called I can't remember the word now. It's going to come out to me to come to them. He's another masjid. Oh, I just had mental breakdown.
Hey, buddy, you're crushing. You're fine with words. You're doing great with words.
I literally just had it. I've said
it's all fine. It's all fine. You don't have to worry about the words. You trust me. If anyone should understand it, it's me.
Yes, but the Muslims are expecting the Messiah to come as well, right? So my point is that whole concept of sin is that we are sinners. We are terrible beings. We don't deserve God's love, but we're going to have this Messiah that is going to come and save us and redeem us of our sins, right? And he will save us. So this is why you have the same consciousness that is applied into government. This is why people believe the government is there as their friend and the government is there to save them, right? And I'm sorry to say that whole understanding of a savior character takes away from your power. And the truth is that we save ourselves. We are our own Messiah because we all are God. But what it is that we have to do what we call the hero's journey and go inside of us to heal our fears and traumas so that we can become the Christ. Because the problem is that Christ is a spiritual office. Christ was not a person. Because the character that became the Christ, his name was Yehoshua or Yeshua. It was not Jesus. The word Jesus never existed. Jesus is a modern day construct. Even in the first English Bible in 1611, the King James Version, the word that there was used was Isus, Iesous. Now, there's a little bit of a history of that word. Isus actually is a Greek word that means hail Zeus. And Zeus was Enlil, who was an Anunnaki god. So when people are using the word Jesus, they're actually giving veneration and praise to Enlil, Yahweh, Jehovah, who is an extraterrestrial god. So in fact, they're actually creating an egregore. And this is why I say that the word that Jesus never existed. Yeshua existed. He became the Christ, yes. But in fact, what we have is an egregore. The word Jesus is an egregore, which is a non-physical entity or thought form that arises from the collective thoughts and emotions of a distinct group of individuals. So anyone that's going to come and say there's power in Jesus, they don't know what they're talking about. That name never, ever existed.
Where did it come from? Like, why does it make it into the... I have friends of mine right now that are going to listen to this, are just going to be punching the air when they hear all this. And
that, to me, the name to me doesn't... It's really what you're thinking when you say the word is what, right?
But is there anything to the... You know, you always hear people when they're dealing with, like, you know, possession, right? That the name Jesus runs off dark energy.
But this is the thing. I'm going to show you now how Jesus came about. And I now remember the word I was trying to tell you. It's called Mahdi. I knew it was going to come back to me.
You got okay.
I just had a brain freeze. So
it's okay.
What I'm going to do, I'm going to explain how the whole word Jesus came about. So, like I said, the word Jesus isn't the original Hebrew name, which it was Yehoshua or Yeshua in the original Hebrew text. This name and spelling was translated from language to language and filtered down into the name we know today as Jesus. Furthermore, there was a 4-step process to erase the official or orthodox Hebrew or Aramaic, because Yeshua spoke Aramaic, and it took nearly 1,600 years to evolve. So the Hebrew was capital Y, capital H, capital W, apostrophe S-H-U-A. So this is Yehoshua. So the first stage that was done in Aramaic was that they removed the capital H, capital W, which made it capital Y, apostrophe S-H-U-A. So this is why I said that some call it Yehoshua and others will call it Yeshua. So in the Hebrew and Arabic name, it was transliterated into Greek and it became Iseus, I-E-S-O-U-S. And the Greek was transliterated into Latin to Isus in the 1611 King James Version of the Bible. That is the, I misquoted, I thought it was I-E-S-O-U-S, but it was I-S-U-S. I-E-S-U-S, sorry. And then the Latin was transliterated into Jesus, right? So, to clarify...
Who did all this? You said they. Who's they?
I would say is the bloodlines of the Anunnaki, because they're the ones that control all the information. All information is controlled by them, right? And all the information has been drip-feeded to humanity to create a narrative. Because religion is just... a set of dogmatic statements that you're not allowed to question, and they all have a narrative which is why the books were written in the way they were written. And when you go back to 325 for the Council of Nicaea, they handpicked books which to put in the canonical Bible, which is why certain things that, like the Book of Enoch was left out, the Book of Joshua was left out, the Book of Barnabas, the Book of Maccabees, all of these were books that were left out because it would tell us too much information and make us realize, hold on a minute, we live on a prison planet. The God that they're telling us in this book, in the Old Testament, is not really the creator of the universe. And we are run by extraterrestrials, right? Because the Book of Enoch clearly shows us about extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings. So the consonant J was not known in the 14th century. Therefore, both the J and the I use the Y sound, as in the word yes. So in the Greek, which was spelled I-E-S-O-U-S, it will be Yeseus because of the Y sound. And in Latin, the word Isus or Jesus, because the I was pronounced as a Y. So in the 18th century, the letters J and I were split into a consonant and vowel, and J was adopted as the consonant letter. Now, since the new consonant J was closer to the modern Y sound, the letter J was chosen into the translation to Jesus. This is why I say that the character that we call Jesus never existed, which is just many of the lies that was injected in religion to take us further away from the truth that Yehoshua was an ascended master, he became the Christ in order to teach us how to get back to source and to escape the matrix, right? The thing is, Christ is very much misunderstood because Christ is a spiritual office that one holds when they acknowledge the presence of the Mother, Father, God, or the I Am presence inside of them. This is why you can say Christ's most powerful words were spoken through the I Am. So Christ is a consciousness. It is not and it is not a person, because if you look at the original word was Christos in Greek. Christos translated into Sanskrit is Krishna, and Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita talks about Krishna consciousness, and Krishna says that he is the Godhead supreme personality. So this is why I argue that Yehoshua the Christ and Krishna for the Hindus are the same consciousness. They come from the same realm, right, of understanding. So Christ refers to the spiritual aspect of Yehoshua, and it basically is what dwells inside of all of us. This is why we're taught to worship the man Jesus. So this man Jesus is going to save you. Don't do anything. Don't do internal work. Don't heal your fears or traumas. Don't try to become a better person. Just leave everything to Jesus and he'll save you, right? This is the thought process that that Christians have, or most of them, I should say. This means that all of us become the Christ. And when we do that, all power and authority is granted unto us through the mighty I Am presence, which is why Christ's most powerful words were spoken through the I Am. He would say things like, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the resurrection and the life. So by speaking through the I Am, he was communicating through his God self, which each and all of us can do once we're committed to mastering our thoughts and feelings, right? Now, if people want to understand a little bit more about the I Am, there are a set of books that I would recommend people read. And they were written by Godfrey and Ray King. The first one is called Unveiled Mysteries. The next one is called The Magic Presence. And the third one is called The I Am Discourse. And these were channeled from Saint Germain, who is the guardian of the violet flame. And the violet flame is the flame that is the color of the crown chakra, and that's the portal that connects us to source and to the entire universe, right? And I would argue that basically Christ is in all of us. We all become the Christ. And to prove why I made that statement, we're gonna talk about something called the high priestly prayer, which is in the book of John. And for people to actually understand Christ, what his words were, his mission, what he believed in.
Do you believe there was a gentleman do you believe that there was a Christ figure?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I believe there were several Christs. I believe that characters like Buddha would have been a Christ because basically he ascended.
You don't believe there was one entity above all what we would say star seeds?
Well, the thing is, star seeds, I would argue that the character Yehoshua was a star seed. I would argue that because all that happened is that he showed humans how to reach their full divinity, right? Because there's a very interesting book called The Life and the Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. This book was collated between 1890 and the 1920s. I think it was 1923.
What's the book called?
The Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. It's an extremely long book, but very, very good. So the story is that about 30 mainstream scientists from the United States went to the Far East in the Himalayas, in Tibet, in China and India, and they followed around these masters for over 30 years. And this book was written based on their observations. And one of the actual scientists, he illuminated while he was there. And there's a very interesting story in the book. For those that read the book, will know the story very well. So long story short, they were going to travel from one city to the next. And when they came to cross a river, the river was at high tide, so they couldn't cross because the stuff that they had the water was high tide, so they wouldn't be able to cross. So the masters, so instead of trying to cross the river, obviously because you would lose all your stuff, and the scientists were saying, well, we just have to walk a few miles down and then cross at a lower point. The masters were like, no, let's just cross. And they're like, how do you mean? So the master was like, come, follow us. And the masters started to walk on water, literally. And like I said, this is a actual stuff that was recorded by mainstream scientists in the Far East. And the master said, come. And the scientists like, no, we will walk up the road. And one of them, he said, okay. And he just believed, and he walked on water, and he crossed the river, right? Another situation in that same book, they were going for dinner. And when they opened the door, the room was pitch black. And one of the masters, every step that he made, it became lighter and lighter and lighter until when they got into the room, the light just like the darkness just disappeared and it just became light. There were no actual light sources in the room. It just was there. And then in the blink of an eye, like that, a table appeared. Then all the cutlery, all the food, all the drink. Then all of a sudden, they just heard an orchestra playing in the background. And the food that they ate was what they described was heavenly food. And there was this like liquid that looked like milk, but tasted like honey. And they said it tasted like no other beverage they've ever tasted. And it replenished them in a way that they never felt. And as soon as they were finished eating, the plates disappeared and the dessert appeared, right? All of these are things that we can do. So one of the things that the scientists asked the masters, why don't they make themselves more visible to Earth, to humans? And they said, well, basically because humans don't want to do the work on themselves. They want us to keep doing all the work. And we are only trying to show them what is possible. But because humans are so lazy, what they're saying, that they just want someone to save them. Instead of realizing that humans save themselves and they become the Christ, right? And they're able to do these things. Because he's saying that basically they don't want to change. And this is very common now. Because if you think about it, as I was saying, look at all of religion. You have this concept of a Messiah or the Mahdi. This person or character is going to come back and save them, save humanity. Look at government. Look at the idea of government. We go and we cast our vote thinking that this person that is going to become prime minister or president or chancellor is going to save us and to make things better, not realizing that what we're doing is we're relegating our power to them. And what do people do when you give them their power? They take advantage of you and they oppress you and they make you slaves, whether that's a physical slave, a mental slave, an emotional slave, or a spiritual slave. You understand? So this is why I say that we are greater than we think we are, and that the power of the universe is inside of us. So getting back to what I was saying about the Christ, and to explain my point where I say that all of us we become the Christ, and Christ is in us. We are one with it, and we're also one with Source. So I'm going to go to the book of John, chapter 17, verse 17, John verse 17 to 23, right? And I'm going to explain it. I'm going to read a little bit before the main point so you can get context, because in order to understand something, you have to have a bit of context before and after. So it says, sanctify them in truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, so have I sent them in the world. And for their sake, I consecrate myself, so that they may also be sanctified in truth. I do not ask for these only, but also for those who believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in me, and I am in you, that they may also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you've given to me, I have given to them, that they may be one, even as we are one, I in them, you in me, that they may be perfectly one, so that the world may know that you've sent me and love them even as you love me. So Christ said it 3 times. He's in us, we are in the Father, and the Father's in us, right? So it means that we are all one with Source, right? And in reality, when the word he's using there is Father is really Father, Mother, because the reason why that you don't have Father, Mother is that the Jews and the Hebrews, they're more respected male figures. So having a feminine connotation to it in their minds would belittle the power of the energy, right, of the creator of all things. But in fact, Source, which I think is one of the best words to use instead of God, because God is kind of limiting, is both male and female, is masculine and feminine energy, because you can't have the egg without the chicken, and you can't have the chicken without the egg. This is why Christ was saying that he's the Alpha and the Omega, but he was speaking through his God self, because you have to have an end to have a beginning, and a beginning has to have an end. So you have to have the chicken and the egg. You have to have the male and the female. You can have as fertile land as possible, but without the seed, you can't plant a tree. You can have a seed, but you have no fertile land, that seed won't ever grow into a tree. So both have to exist at the same time, which is why Source is both male and female. Just like we both are both male and female. We have positive energy inside of us, and we have negative energy inside of us. We have masculine energy inside of us and feminine energy at the same time in us. Carl Jung describes it as the Amena and the Amenus. So the Amena is the feminine element in a male, and the Amenus is the masculine element in the female. And in order to become the Christ, you're able to balance those 2 energies at the same time. So sometimes you may need to have order, logic, structure. It must be black and white. And then other times you've got your intuition, your gut feeling. You know, you can't, it doesn't make sense, but there's something inside of you that's telling you, you know what, just do that thing. And then it works so fine in the end. And, you know, you're like, well, I'm so good, so happy that I did that. And I give an example of something so simple that is what intuition is. So this morning, I heard the truck come around because they sell these big 10-gallon liters of water, right? And it was not the truck that I normally buy from, because they have different brands. So you have to pay more money to get the refill the water in the big bottle. And something said to me, just pay a little bit extra. I mean, it's a few cents, it's nothing major, and get your water refilled. Because if when you go to talk to Sam today, then you hear the truck, you're not going to have water for the weekend. Something just said to me, do that. And I listened. And guess what happened? Just as I was about to come on here to talk to you, the truck passed. And I just smiled and I said, that is just how the intuition works. I had no physical evidence to prove that the truck was going to come at that time. But my intuition, which is the feminine part of me, said, do that. And I observed, I listened, and I did it. And now look, I'm here talking to you. I was on time for the call, and I was able to still get water. So my point is that there's a lot of things that may not necessarily make sense, and there are things that you have to use both minds for. The masculine mind, which is about black and white, order, structure, logic. And then there are other things that you have to use the feminine way of thinking, which is intuition, feeling, you know what I mean? Going with your gut feeling, you know what I mean? And just like seeing certain signs that would like just say, well, do this, do that. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes.
So it's a master of mastery. Is basically what we're here to do is to master ourselves, right?
I totally understand what you're saying. It's very much resonating with me. I'm very interested in hearing what the reaction to a lot of the stuff you are saying is, because I'm not. I've thought a lot of the thoughts you've said, and I find it interesting. It's very interesting.
The thing is, right, is that I find that right now it appears that people seem to be ready to hear this type of information. And there always will be people that will push back against the things that I say. And I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. But what I would say to people is that there's a parable that Christ talks about. He says, you can't put new wine into old wine skins. And upon discovering and finding out the things that I spoke about today, I was very, very skeptical myself. In fact, I didn't really believe any of it. I thought it was all BS. But as the more I investigated and the more that I dug and the more experience I had, and as I started to go down a spiritual path with things like ayahuasca, bufo, magic mushrooms, peyote, I started to realize that a lot of things can't really be explained. I have 100% concrete evidence. They're just things that you just know, right? And Christ always talks about knowing. And he says that you will know something is truth because you will know it's true. And that knowing is a frequency and a vibration. It's a resonance that occurs inside of you. Just like if someone is blatantly telling you straight up lies, and you can be like, that doesn't sound right. That sounds a bit fishy. And it's because what they're saying has a certain frequency and a certain energy and a certain vibration. And you can tell when someone is being genuine. You can tell when someone is speaking what they believe to their best ability. And I do my best to represent that all the things that I say are things that I know, I understand. And can I be wrong? Yes, I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, then I would say, well, look, I got that thing wrong. Because the problem that we have in the world is that if someone says something that says 98% correct, and there's one thing that they say that is not correct, or that guy Sam, that guy Johnny, that guy Todd, he's full of BS. You can't believe anything he says. But you got something wrong. But what about all the other things that you got right? And we have this real polarity sort of complex. Yeah. Which is why politics works so well. It polar divides us. We have in England, conservative versus Labour. United States, Democrat versus Republican. Right versus left, right? So we have these two extremes. And what I try to do is I try to come in the middle and try to bridge the gaps between both sides and say, look, hey guys, this is how it looks to me. And I think that, like Christ says, we need to take the narrow path. Buddha says we take the middle way. And this is why is the inspiration for my logo for my my podcast, which is, the Kadusha sign, which is the staff of Hermes going through, and the wings at the top for the illumination. Because I'm trying to go through the middle path in order to illuminate to the top, right? To understand, to connect into source. So I think that people will receive the information positively. Obviously, there'll be some that will vehemently disagree. I'm
interested to let us know in the comment section. What do you think, dude? Todd, this was a great episode, man. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm very impressed with how good your internet is. That you're in Mexico and your internet is crushing, and we're in LA and we had weird moments there. But I just want to say thank you so much, dude. That was a really great episode. One more time, tell them where they can find you.
Well, you can find me. But before I say that, I just want to say thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you.
Anytime.
And if the conversation that I had today with Sam resonated with you, you can find me at Adriano_246, or you can find me on Facebook, Todd Cave. And as I said earlier in the conversation, I'm an online fitness trainer, and I help spiritually inclined people burn fat and build muscle. So if you are interested in getting into the best shape of your life, you would like to level up your mindset, understand things of a higher level of consciousness, and also try to level up your life in general, my take is that you start through the body. You get the body in shape, and everything else will fall into place, because in order to get in shape, you have to change your mindset. when you change your mindset, that mindset transfers into other areas of your life, whether it may be business, relationships, belief into yourself. So getting into shape is much more mental than it is actual physical, because your mindset is what will determine if you're going to cheat on your diet, or you're going to go to bed on time, or you're going to go to the gym and exercise and stuff. And also, I have my own show. It's called The Conscious Man 7. You can find me on Spreaker. And we have conversations just like this. We talk about these kind of topics. And yes, also, you know, as you can see on the logo on my shirt here, which is for my podcast, I help people connect with some magic mushrooms. So if you're interested in embarking on a spiritual journey and you want to, you know, overcome some fears and traumas and to connect with your higher self and stuff, again, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriana_246, or my name, Todd Cave, on Facebook. And I'll help you to get some magic mushrooms. And then also, lastly, if you like the shirt that I'm wearing and you want to help support my podcast and help us to get better equipment and better cameras and mics, and so we can start to do some walk and talks and have better guests on, you know, you can support the merch store, which is on Amazon, Todd and Me. And yeah, help support the podcast and check out, you know, Sam's work as well, because he has some great talks, some great guests. And you know, help support independent creators that are asking questions. We don't know everything, but we're giving the information to the best of our ability. And, you know, just be mindful that we can get things wrong. And the best of men are the ones that say, hey, I got that wrong. And that's what I try to do. So, yeah, at Adriana_246, or my name, Todd Cave, and The Conscious Man 7 on Spreaker. And stay tuned to my podcast, because we have some really interesting guests coming. And the shaman that I interviewed last week was the shaman that I did the ayahuasca retreat with this weekend. That will be out on my platform this weekend, 13th to 14th of September.